Got our season recap series continuing. We did the Cavs on our last episode, and now we're doing the Grizzlies this episode with my good friend Keith Parish from Fastbreak Breakfast. How's it going, man?
Good, Con. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How you holding up with all the craziness going on?
I guess as good as I could hope. The season wrap up. This sounds so pessimistic.
Why is it pessimistic? I mean, it's pre quarantine season wrap up. Then how about
Pre-quarantine
that?
season. Okay, it's like 2/3 of the season. I mean, I don't. As a Grizzlies fan, I still feel like our best is yet to come.
Regular
If they let us
season.
play again, if they let us play again this season, we're peaking. It's time to peak.
Hundred
We have a
percent.
Justice Winslow we're ready to add.
So, do you think they'll go right to the playoffs? Like, this is obviously speculation. Nothing's been, cleared or whatever, but
My speculation would be I can't imagine they would bother with playing regular season games.
yeah.
It just seems like they would try to force out the playoffs just for television. But I don't know. I mean, it feels like, again, as a podcaster and like part-time musician and not a doctor or epidemiologist, it feels like this is going to be an issue for a year or more of like things being, people are going to get this disease or this virus, and I don't know how the NBA is going to deal with it. Like, are we going to start a playoffs in July, and then they're like, oh, LeBron James has tested positive. Now he has to sit out the next 3 weeks of game. Like, is that what we're going to do? I
It's
mean, maybe.
also I feel like a lot of ancillary secondary effects. Like, we don't need to get into all the negative possible things that could go wrong
Right.
with this virus, but it's not really just the virus. I mean, the economy, global economy is anyway. This is not
Yeah, no, who's sponsoring? Is Applebee's going to be running ads during the playoffs? Because the Applebee's is going to be done. Like,
Oh
I
man.
don't. Yeah, there's a lot of questions to be figured out. I do feel like, and I've been saying it on Fast Break Breakfast, I do feel like they could get them all, while acknowledging the health risks. The NBA could get every team and their coaches together. Maybe you limit coaching staffs. You're like, hey, just bring 3 people, and then you get together 800 to 1,000 people in one spot, and you're like, we're gonna do a 3-week or 4-week playoff and just get this done. But even then, I mean,
Well, the thing is,
I
everyone
don't know.
they need to be confident that like everyone around them is acting safe and accordingly and social distancing and whatever, but we still see like pictures and videos of people like at beaches and going out to clubs or whatever. It's like, what is going on? At
Well, I
least
mean, I just don't think there's any way, again, in like the next year or two, you're going to have complete, like, no one's getting sick. I guess you just hope to get the society gets on top of the outbreak, and then we're like, okay, we can now have the diversions of professional sports going on without any undue, like, added public risk.
yeah, well, let's divert ourselves from all the real topics and talk
Yes,
about
please,
and
please.
get into the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been the surprise of the season, I would say. I mean, I personally
Yeah.
didn't expect them to, be in playoff contention. And the thing is, they kind of started off not so hot, and then they got back up with that 6-game win streak. Morant really started getting into form. Jaren Jackson Jr. has kind of been on and off the court, right? Has he been hurt?
He's been hurt recently, but before that, he'd been basically healthy the whole season.
For sure. So I'm just going to go right to you without really digging into any specific players or anything. But how are you feeling as a Grizzlies fan with 2/3 and maybe the entire regular season done at this point?
Well, until the pandemic, I felt like I'd won the lottery. It's like it seemed like everything had been so fortunate for the Grizzlies over the last 10 months. I mean, it was last April when the season wrapped up. Chris Wallace was still the GM. JB Bickerstaff was still the head coach, and I wasn't a huge fan of what JB did in Memphis. And they were doing like the end of year media stuff
Yeah.
where they were just like, hey, what's the plan for the future with this Grizzlies roster? You still have Mike Conley, and what are we going to do? And Chris Wallace was saying like, well, I don't know what the plan is. And we were all pulling our hair out, and that was barely 9 months ago or 10 months ago. And now it's like you jump up in the lottery to number 2 to get John Morant. You have your foundation pieces for the future. And then, like you said, I think they're the surprise team of the season. They were unanimously everyone's last place pick in the Western Conference. They were my last place pick in the Western Conference. I saw no rational argument why you would think the Grizzlies would be any good this season. And yet, if the season ends as of now, like they made the playoffs, that's something no one saw coming. So they have a young core. You know, they have Jaren Jackson Jr., they have Ja Morant, they got Brandon Clark in the draft, a guy who slid a lot. You have DeAnthony Melton, who's 21 years old. Like, people forget about him. He was a Grizzly who didn't make the Rising Stars Challenge, but he's been a big part of why this team got good after a slow start. You have all those guys you traded for Justice Winslow. Even if the price was steep as far as the dead salary you brought on, he's another very young guy to add to the core. Dylan Brooks is locked up on a reasonable, like a backup player's salary, for the next 3 or 4 years. So this team is in the right trajectory. And again, once the season actually ends and the Celtics get the Grizzlies draft pick, they will fulfill all of their like future draft obligations, and they have 2 extra first round picks coming. So the future is bright, and it's whatever you make of it. So yeah, I feel awesome. To answer, I guess, the basic question, I feel awesome about where the Grizzlies are as a franchise right now. Well, it's crazy. I mean, you look at the best young cores in the NBA, and you see the Grizzlies, who their 2 best players are both 21, and you just feel awesome about that. Like, coming into the season, you were like, let's see what Ja Morant is.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has a lot of hype. You hope he can be a franchise point guard. At the very least, you hope he can be a competent NBA starter, so then you can at least build around those 2 guys. But it turns out he is maybe like a franchise player. Like, he immediately became like the joke on Fastbreak Breakfast and among Grizzlies fans was like, when the season started, you were like, yeah, I hope, he's maybe as good as Mike Conley is currently. Like, you're like, we assumed, and I feel like the NBA community at large, when the season started, was like, no, Mike Conley at 30, however old he is, 32 years old, is better than Ja Morant. And then after a few weeks, you're like, oh, it's kind of closer than you might think. And now it's like, no. Like, Ja Morant is way better than Mike Conley right now, and he might very soon be better than Mike Conley ever was. So as a Grizzlies fan, you're excited about that. And like Jaren Jackson Jr., he's some guy who I still feel like, when you get in like the really deep depths of like nerd Twitter or nerd NBA stuff, and you're kind of picking at his game, it's like Jaren, and maybe you're saying he's been a little disappointing. Like, he's tripled his 3-point output for the season, like from last year. Last year, I think he hit less than 1 a game. And this season, he's making 2.5 per game, and his blocks are up. His scoring is up to like 17 points per game. Like, he didn't make maybe a jump defensively that we thought, but he's still been very good. And he started really slow. And I feel like that stuck in people's minds, and they didn't notice, like, no, he was really awesome for the last 2 months of the season before he got hurt. And so, yeah, I think going forward, having Jaren and Ja, and then again, having those ancillary pieces that are young, that are under contract going forward, sets them up to kind of do whatever they want. Like, they still, if they're going to be a contender in the future, they need to add, you assume, either a third best or second best player who's not currently on the roster. Like, you need to bring in someone else probably, and then have Ja and Jaren continue on like superstar ascension level, at the very least become like all-star level players. But no, I think they're perfectly set up right now. And, we're just, I don't know, grateful for what we had and hope it comes back soon sometime.
Yeah, so for me, I was looking at this Grizzlies roster before, talking to you, and I've watched a few games too. For me, there's 3 core pieces to building a team. It's the all-around wing, the like playmaker point guard that ideally can shoot, but Ja is so athletic and so gifted with the vision that like, and he's not even bad at shooting, but shooting isn't like one of his main strengths. And then the versatile defensive big. So right now you have the Grizzlies have the point guard and the versatile defensive big that can also stretch the floor, which is a bonus to me. And then it's the all-around wing player that you're missing. So I want to jump right into someone that the last 3 Grizzlies games that I watched, Josh Jackson has stuck out every single time. Not that he's going to be a world beater, but his skill set is impressing me. And that's the third player that I want to get into. Like, what have you seen from Josh Jackson? He's like making right reads. He's not afraid to shoot it when he's open. He's getting boards. Like, when he's trying, he plays effectively.
I want to say I tried to light some fire in Grizzlies Twitter right before the shutdown. I think it was over the last 15 games of the season where per 36, Josh Jackson was getting more points, more assists, more rebounds, more steals, more blocks, more threes on better percentages than Dillon Brooks. So
Yeah.
like Dillon Brooks had really struggled. Dillon Brooks was amazing in December, like 20 points per game on incredible splits. Like I think it was like 50, 45, 90 or something. And we knew that wasn't going to last. But then he fell off a cliff at the end of the start of February. And so Josh Jackson, like, I'm kind of pumping the brakes on people getting very excited. I mean, he has that high lottery pedigree. He has the size of a wing that you like and the athleticism. I think he's more ideal for a backup role. Like right now, he's going off as an 8th, 9th man, and I do think that is more what his role is going to be. I'm not certain he would even be back on the team next year because you already have so many roster spots filled, and you're going to need, I think. The main priority for the Grizzlies is a volume accurate shooter. And he's a volume shooter. He's a willing shooter, but I think best case scenario, he's a league average shooter. So I think with what they already have on the roster with Justice Winslow, with Dillon Brooks, if they keep D'Anthony Melton, which I think is a priority of the team to keep him, and then Ja and Jaren and even like a Kyle Anderson, you're probably not going to use your resources, I think, to keep Josh Jackson, even if it is very exciting and we all love a guy, who can play 20 minutes and get like whatever. He was getting 15 points per game in just 20 minutes and also blocking a shot, getting a steal, knocking down a 3 or 2.
Getting some assists. Like, so I'm curious. I'm curious, do you not see like a future for Josh Jackson where he's just the starter and like that guy that you were saying, like they need like the 3rd to 2nd best player? Do you at like, I don't know, in any way see that? I'm not saying it's likely to happen. I'm just saying the flashes I've seen, and he's right now in a decent situation where he wasn't before, and he kind of experienced that, oh shit, like my career might not be going like I thought, and like kind of had that fire lit under him. I don't know. He has the physical tools. Maybe it was the mental kind of awareness that he needed to get back into what he could have become. And I feel like it might happen. I don't know. I'm just saying I liked some of the flashes I've seen from him lately.
No, the flashes have been good, and I think like there was a 5-game stretch where he was the Grizzlies' leading scorer, 17 points per game. Of course, they got blown out in I think 4 of those games.
He was running the pick and roll. Like they were giving him the ball when Ja wasn't on the court. Like he was running the show.
I'm not going to say he can't be a starter on a good team, but I know for this team, and not even I wasn't even counting like Brandon Clark. Like there's already I think 5 guys who I'm more invested in their future with the Grizzlies, where I'm not going to prioritize Josh Jackson. Like I don't envision. I mean, like I guess if you look at the Grizzlies specifically, you're saying how many minutes can Josh Jackson take from Dillon Brooks and Justice Winslow?
Sorry. So what I'm saying is like I was saying, that the 3 core pieces, the wing, the guard, the big, right? And then around those you have ideally like 2 3-and-D type players. So that could be like Dillon Brooks and Kyle Anderson or whoever, or Jay Crowder or whoever. Then you have like the 2nd tier level of each of those 3 core pieces and sub pieces. So Justice Winslow could be that wing playmaker off the bench, which I think could be his ideal role. Brandon Clark could be that versatile defender off the bench. He can't shoot, but he's the bench guy, so a tier under.
I would argue with you there with
Can he shoot?
Basically a record-setting rookie season. I think highest true shooting of any rookie ever. Maybe it was
when I say shoot, I meant from distance, but
he's not a volume shooter. But I mean, he's still shooting over 40% for the year on 3-pointers.
For sure. So there you go.
But I mean, Brandon Clark is the one where it's like I feel like he's going to be in the NBA for 12 years, and it's just he can hit every shot if he starts making more of those threes, and his free throws have been good. So I feel like the scouts tell me that means he can keep it going. Like what he's shown this year isn't a fluke. But I mean, Josh Jackson, I think he can have I wouldn't be surprised if he's gotten his NBA career back on track. I don't know what his ceiling is. Maybe I'm not as excited about like him. Maybe as excited as you are.
No, that's fine. And maybe I'm just hyped off 3 games. Like, right? So I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself. I'm just saying like the Grizzlies check all the boxes that I have to like build a team if Josh Jackson becomes that player. If not, Winslow can be kind of that player, but they will need that type of player plus like maybe a knockdown shooter like you were saying.
I'm hoping for a discontented Buddy Hield in Sacramento, like some kind of trade there. I mean, basically I feel like what the Grizzlies need right now to take a next step is just a 2-guard, 3-guard who can shoot or a 2 or a 3 who can just shoot and score a lot. And obviously those are in high demand and aren't very available. But even if they can shake free someone like Evan Fournier, which their cap situation right now, they'd have to work out some kind of sign and trade to bring that guy in. And I guess the Grizzlies as a franchise are looking towards 2021, like 2 years from now.
Like all
that's
franchises.
The season. Right. Well, that's the season, not just in free agency, but that's the season that we're going to be good. Like this will be Ja Morant's 3rd season. It'll be Jaren Jackson Jr.'s 4th season. If those guys have become all-stars, then everything else, we have all these pieces in place. We should have cap room flexibility, or we can even trade away future picks at that point to bring somebody in. We can maybe make a 3 first-round pick offer to get a Bradley Beal, or even like maybe the Sixers lose patience and they're like, hey, here's Tobias Harris. You're like, okay, we can work with Tobias Harris. We need a 3rd or 4th star who can fit with the guys we already have. So I guess that's the hope for contention.
Maybe Josh Jackson stepping up turns into him plus 2 first-rounders, bringing in someone of actual value, right? So
there you go.
It's been all positive right now. So I just want to ask you, what have been some of the things that have either disappointed you or things that you wish were better? I know it's kind of nitpicking at this point with the over expectations and stuff, but I'm sure there are some.
Honestly, there's not. That's pretty funny because it's like, I mean, I guess every other NBA team, you could probably come up with something to complain about. I don't know how, as a Grizzlies fan, like we could complain about anything right now. Like, I mean, so they started the season terribly, and like they were what we thought they were. Like, oh, they're 6-16. This is a team that's going to be the worst team in the West. We're going to try to maybe keep our draft pick. And then there was that change where D'Anthony Melton started getting playing time, and then Ja Morant went out for a few games. And then once they returned, it's like this date we circled in our calendars on December 9th. It was when Ja Morant had returned from injury and D'Anthony Melton had become part of the regular rotation. Like since that point, the Grizzlies have just been good. They've been flat out good since December 9th. And even with the 5-game losing streak when Jaren Jackson Jr. was injured and they played all the really good teams on a West Coast trip, like since then they've had the 9th best record in the NBA. And so it's like it's over 43 games now where we're like, oh, this is a top 10 defensive team. And they can't shoot very well, so it just still highlights like, yes, we do need, the team does need shooting, but from the expectations of the year and for how young the core of the team is, I mean, like no team's ever made, I think Marbury and Garnett are the only teams that would have made the playoffs where like led by 2 guys as young as Ja and Jaren are. I think the only player to make the playoffs with Ja Morant, the only rookie to lead his team to the playoffs, I think is Magic Johnson, like to average 17 points and basically 7 assists per game. So it's like Ja Morant is in all these short lists of like rookies who have done this. That's exceptional. Then you throw in the fact that D'Anthony Melton's 21 and Jaren Jackson Jr. is 21 and Brandon Clark's a rookie, and you trade for Justice Winslow, who I think he's 22. It's like they're so set up for the future that if Justice Winslow can't overcome his injury limitations, if these guys stagnate in their development, 24, thank you. It's like, even if these guys, if it doesn't work out, best case scenario, you can still cut bait with Winslow after a year. You don't have, you have all the salary commitments to Gorgie Jang and the dead salary of Deion Waiters for next season. But even then, in a couple years, when Ja and Jaren are still young, like the slate is clean and you can try maybe a new path if this path doesn't work out. So I'm going to just be happy with where they are, and I can't honestly come up with a complaint. Oh, I have a complaint. Here's the only complaint is Nike has refused to stock the Vancouver Grizzlies throwbacks.
Wow.
They never stocked them all year. Like they only created a very small amount. I was not able to order a Kyle Anderson custom Vancouver Grizzlies jersey. They've been sold out of Ja Morant. Like everyone wants to buy these Ja Morant jerseys. Right now, the NBA is just hemorrhaging money with this shutdown. They have nothing on TV. If they wanted to make a small amount of money back, all they have to do is stock these Grizzlies Vancouver throwbacks, which have not been in stock all season. They could at least make a little bit of money. So that's my only negative thing.
There you go. Well, jersey sales, that's fine. We can complain about jersey availability.
drop in the bucket, but still.
So before we close out, I did want to ask you about 2 other players. Valanciunas is on the team, and I feel like I've been talking about the centers. I've been talking about Jaren Jackson, Brandon Clark, and like starter, bench, whatever. I didn't even mention JV. What do you feel about him? I feel like he's been playing pretty solid for you guys as that, big bruiser.
I think Valanciunas is like a floor raiser for a team where I think he gets criticism a lot in like the dunked on hive mind, where they're like he can't cover out of the perimeter, thus he's like not a playoff player. But I think for a team like the Grizzlies who need rebounding help, they need defensive backline help. Yes, he's going to sag off every shooter, and they're going to be vulnerable to like a Buddy Hield, for example, like when he's on the court. But the stability he provides on offense, like a player that other teams are going to try to double team all the time, the stability he provides on defense by grabbing a ton of defensive rebounds and protecting the rim, I think makes him very valuable. And he's been extremely valuable to this team. He's a big reason why the Grizzlies have been, basically the 9th or 10th best team over the last 3 months. It's because of Valanciunas playing very strong. When Jaren Jackson Jr. goes down, he provides a lot of offense. So it's funny, like, he was in a platoon situation on the Raptors on a good team. And we start, I guess, as like the NBA hive mind of like the Twitter sphere, the podcasters and bloggers, we start saying like, oh, this guy, maybe he's like a bench player. He's an offensive first player. He can't really provide all that you maybe need on a winning team because he's not versatile. He's not your modern like 3-and-D big, but there's still a place for guys who are completely dominant inside and, grab every rebound. And so it's like an Andre Drummond too, where like Andre Drummond gets a lot of heat because like the Pistons are always terrible, but like there's a role for these guys in the NBA, and Valanciunas has done it on a winning team. And so, yeah, he's been awesome, I think, for the locker room and for his on-court play. And it was a really good deal. The Raptors got Marc Gasol and got a title, and the Grizzlies got a guy who's also surprisingly young. I think he's 26 or 27, and it's like people forget how young he is because he's just giant and huge and slow. So you'd think maybe he's older, but he's been a big part of this Grizz next gen and them playing well this season. And I've definitely enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, he's 27 right now, going to be 28 in 2 months-ish. And then last player from Fenerbahce, my squad in Turkey, and all my Turkish followers tell me I look like him, so I have to ask you about Marko Goodrich. And has he been getting a lot of minutes? Like, what's he been up to?
I am maybe one of the world's foremost Marko Goodrich defenders. He hasn't been great. I think he's comfortably been the worst player on the Grizzlies this season. Sure. He struggled a lot getting his shot off. It felt like he was really seeming like he was struggling with the speed of the NBA game. Mm-hmm. If you kicked it out to him, he seemed like he would hesitate to shoot, and then there would be a closeout, and then he would put on the floor and he would get called for traveling all the time. Like that happens so frequently. His defense seemed pretty solid, and he made a couple of like okay, neat, but maybe count on one hand like dribble moves where he finished.
Yeah.
I'm not going to close the book on him because again, he's a rookie. He signed into next year, so maybe he'll develop a little more. But he also has struggled because of, Melton has played so well. Grayson Allen played well when he got minutes. Dylan Brooks has played well. So there hasn't been a big spot for him to maybe make mistakes and learn on the job. So I'm not going to give up hope on him. But I think it is, you can comfortably say I think he was the worst Grizzly of the team so far.
Yeah,
but
not having.
I'm still pulling for him.
Not having the same results as former Fenerbahce teammate Nikola Melli, who's been playing well for the Pelicans.
Yeah.
But anyway, Keith, thanks for hopping on. We can wrap up here. Anything you want to plug? Anything you got going on with content now that we're all kind of locked in our houses for a while?
Oh, sure, man. Well, yeah, Fastbreak Breakfast. We'll keep going. I also have a Grizzlies podcast called Grits and Grinds. If you're a Memphis Grizzlies listener or fan, check that out. But yeah, Fastbreak Breakfast. I assume we're going to keep podcasting nonstop year round. I mean, we did it. We're a basketball podcast that just never stops. So yeah, check that out.
There you go. Well, check that out. Check us out. Hit us up at the Bench Mob NBA at Fast Break. What was your Twitter handle?
Fastbreak Break.
Fastbreak Break. Check them out, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.